Ambassador Wu walked through the massive halls of the Galactic Council chamber for what she knew would be the last time. Her feet echoed on the crystalline floor as alien species from across the galaxy watched her approach the central podium. She had made this walk hundreds of times over 30 years. Each time she came with hope. Each time she left with disappointment. Today would be different. She reached the podium and placed her data pad on the surface. The holographic displays showed her petition clearly. It was the same petition humanity had submitted 20 times before. Protection for human colonies, fair trade agreements, recognition as full council members instead of probationary associates. Simple requests that any species deserved. The council members lounged in their elevated seats. Some slept. Others talked among themselves. Very few paid attention to the human standing before them. Wu had stopped being angry about their disrespect years ago. Now she just felt tired. High Arbiter finally acknowledged her presence with a wave of his crystalline appendage. His voice boomed through the chamber with artificial authority. Ambassador Wu of Earth, you stand before the council once more. State your petition. Wu took a breath. She had given this speech so many times she could recite it in her sleep. Honored council members, humanity requests immediate action on 3 critical matters. First, military protection for our colonies in the Outer Rim. The raiders have attacked 17 human settlements in the past year. 2,000 civilians have died. Second, we request fair tariffs on human trade goods. The current rates are 5 times higher than those imposed on other species. Third, we request full council membership. Humanity has been a probationary member for 30 years. We have met every requirement you have set before us. The council chamber filled with the sounds of alien laughter and dismissive chittering. Counselor of the Empire leaned forward. His voice dripped with condescension. The human speaks of requirements. Tell me, Ambassador, has your species learned patience yet? Humility. You are children playing among adults. The issue is a minor border dispute. Learn to defend yourselves. As for trade and membership, perhaps in another century we will reconsider. Wu felt her jaw tighten. Another century. They always said another century. Another decade. Another evaluation period. Meanwhile, humans died in colonies that the council promised to protect. Human merchants went bankrupt paying unfair tariffs. Human scientists were excluded from council research programs despite having superior technology in many fields. She looked Counselor directly in his 6 eyes. With respect, Counselor, 2,000 dead civilians is not a minor dispute. The Mutual Defense Treaty that humanity signed when we joined the Council clearly states that all members will receive protection from external threats. They are an external threat. We demand action. High Arbiter's laughter echoed through the chamber. Demand. Humans do not make demands of this council. Your petition is, as always, this session is concluded. Wu stood at the podium as the council members filed out of the chamber. Most ignored her completely. A few shot her looks of pity or amusement. Counselor, an elderly diplomat from a minor species, paused beside her. He spoke quietly so only she could hear. They make a grave mistake, Ambassador. I have studied human history. I know what your species is capable of when pushed too far. She looked at the old alien with surprise. Then why don't you speak up? Shook his head sadly. Because they would not listen to me any more than they listened to you. I am sorry, Wu. I truly am. He shuffled away, leaving her alone in the empty chamber. Wu returned to the human embassy in the council station. Her assistant greeted her at the door with a concerned expression. How did it go? The same as always, Wu replied. She poured herself a drink and collapsed into her chair. 30 years of her life spent in diplomatic service. 30 years of careful words and patient negotiation. And what did humanity have to show for it? Nothing but contempt and broken promises. Her communication console beeped. Urgent message from Earth. Wu opened it and began reading. Her eyes widened with each line. When she finished, she read it again to make sure she understood correctly. The message was from Commander Han Solo of the Terran Defense Fleet. It was short and direct, the way military messages always were. They had attacked again. This time they hit the colony on Nu, the entire settlement, 2 million civilians, men, women, and children, all dead. Humanity had requested emergency council intervention citing the Mutual Defense Treaty. The council had responded within an hour. Their message was brief. They declared it an internal border dispute beyond their jurisdiction. They would not be sending aid or military support. They suggested humanity negotiate directly with the leadership. Wu felt something cold settle in her chest. The council had finally gone too far. You could insult humanity's pride. You could charge unfair tariffs. You could delay membership for decades. But you could not stand by and watch 2 million humans die while refusing to honor a treaty you forced them to sign. The second part of Commander Han Solo's message contained new orders. The human government had made a decision. Earth was withdrawing from the Galactic Council immediately. All treaties were void. All agreements were canceled. Humanity would no longer recognize Council authority over any human affairs. The Terran Defense Fleet was mobilizing. Diplomatic staff were ordered to return home within 48 hours. Wu's hands shook as she drafted her final message to the Council. She kept it simple. No elaborate diplomatic language, no careful phrasing, just the truth. Members of the Galactic Council, for 30 years humanity came to you seeking partnership. You offered us condescension, we sought justice. You gave us bureaucracy, we asked for protection. You gave us excuses. 2 million of my people are dead because you refused to honor your own treaties. We are done talking. We are done asking. We are done being patient. From this moment forward, humanity recognizes no council authority. Stay out of human space or learn why Earth's history is written in blood. This is not a threat. This is a fact. She sent the message and began packing her office. Around her, the embassy staff worked in organized chaos as they prepared for evacuation. Wu took one last look at the council station through her window. Somewhere in that massive structure, the council members were probably laughing at humanity's withdrawal. They thought humans were throwing a tantrum. They would learn the truth soon enough. Humanity had not forsaken diplomacy because they were impulsive or childish. They forsook it because 30 years had proven that in this galaxy, words meant nothing. Only strength mattered. Only action produced results. The council wanted to see what humanity looked like when they stopped talking. Wu suspected they would regret that wish very soon. She picked up her last box and walked out of the embassy without looking back. The age of human diplomacy was over. Something far more dangerous was about to begin. The news of humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council spread across the galaxy within hours. The reaction was exactly what Admiral expected. Laughter, mockery, dismissal. Council species gathered in their forums and communication networks to joke about the temperamental humans who could not handle adult politics. Read the intercepted messages in his command center aboard the flagship Indomitable. Director Youngmi stood beside him, her face expressionless as she watched the same data streams. She had spent 20 years running human intelligence, gathering information about every species in Council space. Now that information would finally be useful. They think we will come crawling back within a month, Youngmi said quietly. They believe we cannot survive without Council trade networks and protection. Smiled without humor. Let them believe it. Overconfidence makes enemies careless. Captain entered the command center and saluted sharply. He was young for a fleet commander, only 35. But he had proven himself in dozens of skirmishes along the outer rim. He was also one of the few human officers who never believed in the Council's promises. Admiral, the fleet is ready, reported. All ships are armed and supplied. Crews are at battle stations. We can launch within the hour. Nodded. Good. Your target is the military base in the Epsilon sector, the same base that launched the attack on Nu. His eyes hardened. What are the rules of engagement, sir? There are no rules anymore, Captain. We are not council members. We do not follow council protocols. You will jump into the sector, eliminate all military presence, and establish a human garrison. No warnings, no negotiations, no survivors taken unless they have valuable intelligence. The young captain's smile was cold. Understood, Admiral. It will be my pleasure. After left, Youngmi turned to with a concerned expression. The Council will demand we cease military operations immediately. They will threaten sanctions and military intervention. Let them, replied. We need them to threaten us. We need them to make demands. Because when we ignore those demands, they will have to decide what to do about it. And that decision will tell us everything we need to know about their true strength. The attack on the base happened exactly as planned. S fleet jumped into normal space without warning. They had minimal defenses because they never expected retaliation from the weak diplomatic humans. They were wrong. Human ships moved with precision and speed that shocked the commanders. Within 10 minutes, every warship in the sector was destroyed or disabled. Within 30 minutes, the military installations on the surface were burning. Within an hour, human marines were setting up permanent defenses around the sector. Sent his report with brutal efficiency. Objective complete, military presence eliminated, human garrison established, 0 human casualties, requesting orders for next target. The galactic news networks exploded with outrage. The Council convened an emergency session. High Arbiter's message to Earth was filled with threats and demands. Humanity must cease military operations immediately. Humanity must return captured territory. Humanity must submit to Council arbitration. Admiral broadcast his response on every Council channel, making sure every species in the galaxy would hear it. His voice was calm and cold. Members of the Galactic Council, hear me clearly. Humanity is no longer a council member. Your laws do not apply to us. Your demands mean nothing. Your threats are empty words. For 30 years we played by your rules. We were patient. We were peaceful. We were diplomatic. And our reward was the massacre of 2 million civilians while you did nothing. That ends now. The attacked human territory. We responded. Any species that enters human space without permission will receive the same response. Any species that threatens human lives will be eliminated. This is not negotiation. This is fact. Stay away from humanity or share this fate. Counselor watched the broadcast from his quarters and shook his head sadly. He had tried to warn them. He had studied human history extensively. He knew what humans were capable of when their patience ran out. He remembered reading about Earth's wars. World War I, where humans killed millions of each other over lines on a map. World War II, where they industrialized death itself. The Cold War, where 2 human nations built enough weapons to destroy their own planet several times over. Humans were the only species in Council history who had developed nuclear weapons before achieving space flight. They were so good at killing that they nearly made themselves extinct. And the Council had decided to dismiss these creatures as children, as harmless primitives who needed guidance and supervision. Sent a private message to several Council members he considered reasonable. We have made a terrible mistake. Humanity's withdrawal is not a tantrum. It is a declaration of war, not against any single species, but against the entire system that failed them. I urge you to consider peace negotiations before this escalates. His message was ignored. The Council was too proud to admit they might have underestimated humanity. Director Youngmi met with Admiral in a secure briefing room. She carried a data chip containing information that only 5 people in the human government knew about. Admiral, it is time to reveal the truth about our military capabilities, she said. For 30 years, we deliberately understated our technology level. The Council believed we were only slightly more advanced than the average spacefaring species. They were wrong. She activated the holographic display. It showed schematics for weapons systems the Council had never seen, faster-than-light drives that made human ships twice as fast as anything in Council space, energy weapons that could bypass Council shield technology, antimatter warheads powerful enough to crack a planet's crust. "We built all of this while we were still Council members?" asked in surprise. Young Mi nodded. "We built it because we did not trust the Council to protect us. We were right not to trust them. Every human colony has hidden defensive installations. Every human ship has weapons the Council does not know about. We have been preparing for this moment since the day we joined the Council." Studied the schematics with growing satisfaction. How long before the Council discovers the truth? "They will find out the first time they try to stop us with force," Young Mi replied. "I estimate that will happen within 2 weeks. The Council cannot allow humanity to operate independently. They will send a peacekeeping fleet to force us back to the negotiating table. And when they do..." Young Mi's smile was sharp. "They will learn that humanity does not negotiate from a position of weakness anymore." Across the galaxy, other species began to react to humanity's actions. Some were afraid, others were intrigued. A few saw opportunity. If humans could withdraw from the Council and survive, maybe they could too. The Council tried to impose economic sanctions on humanity. Human merchants ignored them and traded directly with independent systems. The Council threatened to seize human assets in Council space. Human military forces secured those assets before the Council could act. The Council attempted to isolate humanity diplomatically. Humanity established direct diplomatic relations with dozens of species who were tired of Council bureaucracy. Every Council action was met with human defiance. Every threat was ignored. Every demand was rejected. High Arbiter finally admitted what everyone already knew. Words would not bring humanity back under control. Only force would work. He ordered the Council military to assemble a fleet large enough to intimidate any species in the galaxy. 300 warships, the largest fleet the Council had assembled in 1,000 years, enough firepower to conquer a dozen star systems, surely enough to make the humans see reason. Admiral received intelligence about the fleet within hours of its formation. He called his senior commanders to the Indomitable for a final briefing before the battle that would change everything. "The Council is sending 300 ships to force us back into submission," he told them. "They expect us to surrender immediately when we see their overwhelming numbers. They are about to learn the most important lesson about humanity. We do not surrender, we do not back down, and we do not lose wars we are determined to win. Prepare the fleet. We are about to show the galaxy what happens when humans stop talking and start fighting." The Council peacekeeping fleet entered human space with all the confidence of a predator entering the territory of prey. 300 warships representing the combined military might of the galaxy's most powerful species. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They expected humanity to finally understand its place in the galactic order. What they got was 50 human ships waiting at the Helios Gate, the main entry point into the core human systems. The Council fleet commander was unnamed. He had served in the Council military for 200 years and never lost a battle. He looked at the human formation with something close to pity. 50 ships against 300. The humans must be insane. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "Attention human vessels. This is Fleet Commander of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force. You are in violation of Council military protocols. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted back to Earth for negotiations. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Admiral sat in the command chair of the Indomitable and listened to his message. He looked at his tactical officer. "Are all ships in position?" "Yes, Admiral. All ships report ready for combat. All systems are green." Opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral. You know what we are fighting for. You know what we lost. You know why we are here. The Council thinks we are weak because we are few. They think we will surrender because they are many. Show them what humanity really is. Show them what happens when predators mistake patience for weakness. Engage at will. He closed the channel and turned to his weapons officer. Fire. What happened next shocked every observer in the galaxy. The human ships did not charge forward in some desperate glory run. They did not attempt to flee. They moved with precision and coordination that seemed almost impossible. Engineer Bin had spent 10 years designing the weapon systems the human ships carried. She watched from Earth as her creations were finally revealed to the galaxy. The particle beams that bypassed Council shields completely. The kinetic accelerators that fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The electronic warfare systems that disrupted Council targeting and communications. Within the first minute of battle, 20 Council ships were destroyed. Within 5 minutes, 50 more were crippled and drifting. The Council fleet began to break formation as panic spread through their ranks. Fleet Commander could not believe what he was seeing. His shields were useless. His weapons could barely track the human ships that moved with impossible speed and agility. His communication systems were jammed. His tactical displays showed ships vanishing from his fleet faster than he could count them. He tried to rally his forces. All ships, focus fire on their flagship. Concentrate all weapons on the large human vessel. 50 Council ships turned their weapons toward the Indomitable. Before they could fire, human escorts deployed a defensive screen and absorbed the incoming fire with ease. Then they returned fire. All 50 Council ships were destroyed within seconds. Captain commanded a strike group of 12 human destroyers. They moved through the Council fleet like sharks through a school of fish. His tactics were ruthless and efficient. Target the engines first to disable the ship, then destroy the weapons, then move to the next target. No mercy, no hesitation, no surrender accepted. The Council crews tried to surrender. They broadcast emergency signals and powered down their weapons. The human ships ignored them and continued firing. This was not a battle where prisoners were taken. This was extermination. Dr. Jin watched the battle from the Human Intelligence Center. She felt no joy in the destruction, only a cold satisfaction that justice was finally being served. She thought about 2 million dead civilians. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong except live in a place the Council decided not to protect. She had been on Nu when they attacked. She survived by hiding in a research bunker while the city burned above her. She spent 3 days in that bunker listening to the screams. When rescue ships finally arrived, she emerged to find a graveyard. Bodies everywhere. Buildings reduced to rubble. A thriving colony turned into a monument to Council indifference. Now she watched as the Council's fleet died the same way those colonists had died, without mercy, without hope, without anyone coming to save them. The Battle of the Helios Gate lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 270 Council ships were destroyed. 30 ships managed to retreat back through the gate, heavily damaged and barely functional. Human casualties: 4 ships with moderate damage, 0 ships destroyed, 0 crew fatalities. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the battle footage was broadcast on every network. The invincible Council fleet had been shattered by a force 1/6 its size. The humans who everyone dismissed as primitive children had just proven they were the most dangerous military power in the galaxy. High Arbiter convened an emergency Council session. For the first time in his 300-year career, he felt genuine fear. The Council chamber that usually echoed with confident authority now filled with panicked voices. "How is this possible?" one counselor demanded. "Our intelligence said human technology was barely adequate for space travel." "Our intelligence was wrong," Director Youngmi's voice interrupted from the chamber's communication system. She had hacked into the Council's secure network with ease. "Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted you to believe. For 30 years we played weak while building the strongest military in the galaxy. You ignored us. You dismissed us. You laughed at us. That was your mistake." Her image appeared on the holographic displays. She stood in the Human Intelligence Center, surrounded by data streams showing every council military position in the galaxy. "You wanted to see what humanity looks like when we stop playing diplomat. Look at your fleet. Look at what remains of your military pride. That is what we look like, and we are just getting started." The image disappeared, leaving the council in chaos. Counselor watched the panic with sad resignation. He had warned them. He had told them that humanity was dangerous. No one listened. General Yang commanded the Human Marine Corps. He was a veteran of dozens of ground campaigns and known for tactics that other species considered extreme. When Admiral ordered him to secure the home system, he did so with characteristic efficiency. The military had fortified their home planet heavily after humanity's initial attacks. They believed their defenses were impregnable. General Yang proved them wrong in less than 48 hours. Human Marines did not land on the planet directly. Instead, they seized control of the orbital stations and turned the stations' weapons against the planet's surface. They destroyed power plants, communication hubs, and military bases from orbit. When ground forces tried to respond, human ships deployed kinetic strikes that created artificial earthquakes. The government surrendered within 2 days. General Yang's terms were harsh and non-negotiable. They would dismantle their entire military. They would pay reparations to new survivors for the next century. They would hand over every officer who participated in the massacre. Any ship that entered human space would be destroyed without warning. They had no choice but to accept. They were a broken species. Dr. Jin broadcast a message across the galaxy. She showed footage from the burning buildings, the dead children, the bodies in the streets. Then she showed the message the Council had sent when humanity begged for help. Internal border dispute, beyond our jurisdiction. Her voice was cold and clear. This is what the Council calls an internal border dispute. 2 million dead because they decided our lives were not worth their time. You wanted to know why humanity forsook diplomacy. This is why. Because in this galaxy, words mean nothing. Strength is the only language anyone understands. The Council taught us that lesson. We learned it well. Commander Hansol addressed the human parliament in a speech that would be remembered for generations. For 30 years, we tried to be the species the Council wanted us to be, peaceful, patient, diplomatic, and our reward was the massacre of innocents. They asked us to play by their rules. We tried. We failed. Now we play by our own rules, and our only rule is this: never again. Never again will humanity bow to those who have no respect for human life. Never again will we wait for permission to defend ourselves. Never again will we be weak. The applause from the Parliament was thunderous. Humanity had finally united behind a single purpose, not conquest, not empire, but the absolute refusal to be victims ever again. The Council faced a choice: accept the new reality where humanity operated independently, or attempt another military action. High Arbiter knew that another defeat would mean the end of Council authority, but accepting human independence would also undermine everything the Council represented. He chose pride over wisdom. He began planning for a second, larger fleet. This time they would bring overwhelming force. This time they would not fail, but deep in his crystalline heart felt the first stirrings of doubt. What if overwhelming force was not enough? What if the humans were truly as dangerous as they appeared? What then? The destruction of the Council fleet at Helios Gate sent shockwaves through the galaxy that went far beyond military concerns. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council had been the ultimate authority. Their word was law. Their military was invincible. Species joined the Council seeking protection and prosperity, accepting whatever terms the Council demanded. Now that foundation was cracking. Admiral did not wait for the Council to recover from their defeat. He knew that momentum was everything in war. Within days of the Helios Gate battle, human fleets appeared at the borders of 12 different species, not to invade, not to conquer, but to deliver a message. Captain led the fleet that arrived at the Empire's border. They were one of the most powerful council members. They had voted against every human petition for 30 years. Their representative, Counselor, had personally mocked Ambassador Wu during her final appearance before the council. His message was broadcast on all communication channels. People of the Empire, your government chose to support the massacre of Nu. Your council representative laughed at human suffering. You made an enemy of humanity through your indifference. We are here to collect payment for that choice. Power down your military installations and await further instructions. Resistance will be met with total destruction. The military, still reeling from reports of what happened at Helios Gate, faced an impossible decision. Fight and risk annihilation, or surrender to a species they had always considered inferior. They chose to fight. It was a mistake they realized within the first hour of combat. Human weapons tore through defenses like they did not exist. Ships that had served in the Council military for centuries were reduced to debris in minutes. Ground installations that had stood for were turned to craters. But the humans were not trying to conquer territory. They systematically destroyed military capabilities and then they left the civilian population untouched, but made sure the military would take years to rebuild. Colonel Bora commanded the human special forces units that conducted covert operations deep in Council space. Her teams infiltrated Council military bases, intelligence centers, and government facilities. They did not engage in sabotage or assassination. They gathered information and left evidence that they had been there. The message was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere in Council space whenever they wanted. No installation was safe. No secret was secure. The Council's security forces could not stop them or even detect them until it was too late. Director Youngmi used that intelligence to devastating effect. She knew which Council species had voted to deny human protection. She knew which species had profited from unfair trade practices with humanity. She knew which species had secretly celebrated the new massacre. Every single one of those species received a visit from human military forces. Some species fought. They lost quickly and decisively. Some species tried to negotiate. Humanity ignored their pleas and destroyed their military capabilities anyway. A few species surrendered immediately and begged for mercy. Those species received terms similar to what they had been given. Dismantle your military, pay reparations, hand over those responsible for crimes against humanity, stay out of human space forever. The alternative was complete destruction. Most chose to accept the terms. A few chose pride over survival and were annihilated. Scientist 1 worked in a research facility so secret that only a handful of humans knew it existed. He had spent 15 years developing weapons that pushed the boundaries of what physics allowed. Antimatter warheads, gravitational disruptors, weapons that could crack planets or collapse stars. Admiral had hoped never to use those weapons. They were meant as a final deterrent, a way to ensure humanity's survival if the entire galaxy turned against them. But when the Empire attempted to invade Earth itself, he made the decision to demonstrate just how far humanity was willing to go. Once antimatter weapons were deployed against the 3 moons orbiting the moons were military installations, housing weapons platforms and fleet bases. They were also symbols of power and pride. The weapons activated simultaneously. 3 massive explosions turned the moons into expanding clouds of superheated debris. The energy release was visible from neighboring star systems. They survived, but the message was unmistakable. Humanity could destroy your worlds if they chose to. They were showing mercy by only destroying the moons. That mercy would not be offered twice. The Empire surrendered within hours. Their proud military that had dominated council politics for centuries was broken. Their emperor broadcast an unconditional surrender and agreed to every human demand without negotiation. The galaxy watched in horror as species that had seemed invincible fell before human military might. Panic spread through Council space. If they could be defeated so easily, what chance did smaller species have? Ambassador was a minor Council diplomat who had always treated humans with respect during their time as Council members. She watched the systematic destruction of Council authority with growing desperation. Someone had to stop this before the entire galactic civilization collapsed into chaos. She traveled to Earth without Council authorization, knowing she might be executed for treason. She had to try to broker peace before more species died. Admiral agreed to meet her, more out of curiosity than any real interest in negotiation. They met in a secure conference room in the human military headquarters. Was shocked by how young the human admiral looked. She had expected some ancient warrior. Instead, she faced a man who could not be more than 50 years old by human standards. "Admiral, I come to you with an unofficial peace offer," began. "There are many Council members who recognize that humanity was treated unjustly. We wish to negotiate a peaceful resolution to this conflict." Studied the alien diplomat with cold eyes. Where were these concerned Council members when New burned? Where were they during 30 years of petitions? Where were they when Ambassador Wu begged for help and received only mockery? Looked down at her hands. "We were silent. We were cowards. I do not deny this. But surely more violence is not the answer. Surely we can find a diplomatic solution." "You had 30 years to offer diplomacy," replied. "You offered us contempt. Now you come begging for peace because your military cannot stop us. You do not want peace, Ambassador. You want survival. Those are not the same thing." "What do you want then?" asked desperately. "What will it take for humanity to stop this campaign?" Leaned back in his chair. "We want what we always wanted: respect, security, justice. The Council proved they would never give us those things willingly, so we are taking them by force. We are not trying to rule the galaxy, Ambassador. We are trying to break the system that allowed our people to be massacred while the galaxy watched and did nothing." "And how many species must die for this breaking to be complete?" "As many as necessary," said without hesitation. "We will keep destroying Council military forces until every species understands that humanity answers to no one. Until every government knows that threatening human lives means certain death. Until the Council itself is dismantled and replaced with something better." Left Earth knowing her mission had failed. She reported back to the few Council members who still hoped for peace. The news was grim. Humanity would not stop. They would not negotiate. They would fight until the old galactic order was completely destroyed. High Arbiter received her report and felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of life: true fear. The humans were not acting like a species trying to win a war. They were acting like a species that had already decided they would rather die than submit. That kind of enemy could not be defeated through conventional means. He called together the Council's senior military leaders. "Tell me honestly, can we defeat humanity in a prolonged war?" The silence that followed told him everything he needed to know. Finally, one admiral spoke up. "No, High Arbiter, we cannot. Human technology is superior. Their tactics are ruthless. Their resolve is absolute. We can maybe slow them down, but we cannot stop them. Every battle we fight, we lose ships and personnel we cannot replace. Every battle they fight, they grow stronger as other species surrender to their demands." Slumped in his seat. "Then what do you suggest?" "Surrender," the Admiral said quietly. "Accept that the Council's authority is over. Accept that humanity has won. Negotiate the best terms we can before they decide to destroy the Council completely." But's pride would not allow surrender. He began planning for one final, desperate gamble. If the Council could not defeat humanity through conventional warfare, they would try something else. something that would either save the Council or damn the galaxy forever. Meanwhile, Captain and Colonel Bora continued their systematic destruction of Council military power. Species that had laughed at humanity months ago now lived in terror of human ships appearing in their skis. The invincible Council was learning what it meant to be powerless, what it meant to beg for mercy and receive none, what it meant to be dismissed, ignored, and left to face an enemy alone. They were learning all the lessons they had taught humanity, and humanity was a very thorough teacher. 1 year after humanity from the Galactic Council, the galaxy was transformed beyond recognition. Ambassador Wu stood on the observation deck of the space station that now served as headquarters for the Free Species Coalition. She looked out at the stars and thought about how much had changed. The Galactic Council still existed technically. High Arbiter still sat in his crystalline throne. The massive Council station still orbited the neutral zone between major powers, but the authority that once made the Council's word absolute was gone, shattered, destroyed by a species that refused to accept the old rules. 40% of former Council members had withdrawn, following humanity's example. They were tired of bureaucracy that served the powerful while ignoring the weak, tired of trade agreements that benefited ancient empires while crushing developing species, tired of military protection that only arrived for those who could afford the Council's price. Wu had retired from diplomatic service after humanity's withdrawal. She had spent too many years being diplomatic while achieving nothing. Now she served as an advisor to the Free Species Coalition, helping other species understand how to survive and thrive outside Council authority. She thought about the path that brought her here, the endless petitions, the mocking laughter, the final moment when the Council refused to help New. She did not regret humanity's choice to forsake diplomacy. Diplomacy only worked when both sides operated in good faith. The Council never had. Director Youngmi entered the observation deck carrying a data pad. She still ran human intelligence, though her role had expanded significantly. Now she coordinated intelligence sharing between dozens of independent species. The final report on Council military capabilities, Youngmi said, handing the data pad to Wu. They have lost 60% of their fleet strength. Most of the surviving ships are obsolete by human standards. It would take them at least 20 years to rebuild to pre-war levels, probably longer given their economic situation. Wu scanned the report with satisfaction. And what about the species that remained loyal to the Council? Mostly the old empires that benefited from Council corruption, Youngmi replied. They are learning that their power came from the system, not from their own strength. Without Council backing, they are just average military powers. Several of them have already approached us about joining the Free Species Coalition. Do we accept them? That depends. If they are willing to operate as equals and follow coalition principles, yes. If they expect special treatment because of their history, no. The whole point of this new order is that no species is more important than another. Admiral joined them on the observation deck. He looked older than he had a year ago. The weight of command during wartime had aged him, but his eyes were still sharp and focused. The last holdout species just surrendered, he announced. The Confederacy agreed to our terms. That makes 97 species that have officially recognized human sovereignty and joined the coalition. How many species are we still at war with? Wu asked. 3, replied, and 2 of those are negotiating surrender terms right now. Only the Empire still refuses to negotiate, but they are in no position to continue fighting. Their military is destroyed. Their economy is collapsing. Their emperor is facing internal revolts. Youngmi smiled slightly. Pride is expensive. They are learning that lesson the hard way. Captain had been promoted to Rear Admiral after his success in the war. He now commanded the Coalition's Rapid Response Fleet, ensuring that no species could threaten Coalition members without facing immediate retaliation. He visited the station regularly to report on fleet operations. "Admiral, we have a situation," said as he entered the observation deck. "The Emperor has been overthrown by his own military. The new government wants to negotiate surrender." "What are their terms?" asked. "They accept all our demands: complete military disarmament, reparations to new survivors, war crimes trials for those responsible for supporting the massacre, and they want to join the Free Species Coalition." Wu raised an eyebrow. "They want to join us after everything." Nodded. "The new government says the old empire was corrupt and needed to fall. They see the coalition as their best chance for a fresh start. They are willing to accept equal status with all other member species." Considered this carefully, what do our experts think? "They believe the new government is sincere," replied. "The reformers who took power are mostly younger who disagreed with the old empire's policies. They genuinely want change." "Then we accept their surrender and their application to join the coalition," decided. "But they will be watched closely. Any sign they are reverting to old behaviors and they are expelled immediately." Counselor watched the final collapse of council authority from his quarters. He had lived for 300 years and never imagined he would see the end of the galactic order he grew up with. Part of him mourned its loss, but part of him felt relief. He had spent decades watching the council become more corrupt, more arrogant, more disconnected from the species it claimed to serve. He tried to reform it from within and failed. Perhaps it needed to be destroyed so something better could emerge. He sent a message to Admiral requesting a private meeting. He was done with the council. If the galaxy was building a new order, he wanted to help. Dr. Jin stood at the rebuilt memorial on Nu. The colony had been reconstructed over the past year, rising from the ashes like a symbol of human resilience. 2 million names were carved into black stone, one for each person who died when the council abandoned them. She came here often to remember why humanity fought this war, not for conquest, not for power, but because 2 million people deserved justice and the old system had failed to provide it. A young approached her nervously. He wore the simple clothes of a civilian, not the armor of a warrior. "Excuse me, are you Dr. Jin?" "I am," she replied, studying the alien carefully. "My name is, I served in the military during the war. I was part of the fleet that tried to invade Earth." He looked down at his feet. "I came here to apologize. I followed orders without questioning them. I believed the propaganda about humans being primitive and dangerous. I was wrong. I am sorry." Jin felt a mixture of emotions: anger at what his people had done, pity for a young soldier caught in a bad situation, hope that maybe reconciliation was possible. "Why did you come here?" she asked. "Because I needed to see what we did, what the old empire's arrogance cost. I needed to stand before these names and understand that they were real people, not just statistics." He gestured at the memorial. 2 million people died because my government cared more about pride than justice. I cannot change that, but I can make sure I never forget it." Jin nodded slowly. "That is a good first step. Remembering is important. Making sure it never happens again is more important." "The new government has applied to join your coalition," said. "Many of my people are afraid you will reject us, that humanity will never forgive what we did." "Forgiveness is complicated," Jin replied. "But the coalition is not about punishment. It is about building something better than what came before. If your people are sincere about change, they will be welcomed." General Yang oversaw the final stages of Council military disarmament. His teams traveled to dozens of worlds, ensuring that weapons systems were destroyed and military installations were dismantled. Some species cooperated willingly. Others required more forceful persuasion. But the job was nearly complete. The Council's military machine that once dominated the galaxy was being systematically taken apart. New treaties ensured that no single species or alliance could amass enough military power to threaten others. The Free Species Coalition operated on different principles than the Council. No species could maintain a military larger than needed for self-defense. All members contributed to a shared rapid response fleet that protected everyone equally. Military actions required approval from a majority of member species, not just a ruling council of ancient empires. Commander Han Solo gave a speech at the Coalition's first annual assembly. Representatives from nearly 100 species gathered to hear him. 1 year ago, humanity made a choice that shocked the galaxy. We chose to stop talking and start fighting. Many people ask me if I regret that choice. The answer is no. Diplomacy is a beautiful thing when both sides respect it, but for 30 years we practiced diplomacy with a council that had no respect for us. Our words meant nothing. Our petitions were jokes. Our pain was entertainment. The council taught us that in this galaxy only strength matters. Only force produces results. We learned that lesson well, perhaps too well, but we also learned something else. Strength without justice is tyranny. Force without purpose is destruction. We fought not to become like the Council, but to destroy the system that made such cruelty possible. Today we stand in a new galaxy, one where species are judged by their actions, not their age, where treaties mean something because they are enforced fairly, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. This is what humanity wanted all along. We just had to burn down the old order to build it. Some call us warmongers, destroyers, monsters who forsook all diplomacy. Let them. We know what we are. We are the species that refuse to be victims, that refuse to accept injustice, that refuse to let 2 million dead be forgotten. If that makes us monsters, then so be it. Better to be feared monsters than forgotten victims. The assembly erupted in applause, not just from humans, but from dozens of species who had suffered under council authority and were grateful for the change. High Arbiter watched the broadcast from his empty council chamber. Most council members had stopped attending sessions. His authority was a joke now. The mighty Galactic Council reduced to a historical footnote. He finally did what he should have done a year ago. He sent a formal message to Earth. Not demands, not threats, just a simple admission. Humanity was right. The Council was corrupt. We failed you and many others. I cannot change the past, but I acknowledge our failures. The Council will dissolve within the month. Whatever comes next will be better than what we were. Admiral read the message and felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a tired acknowledgement that the war was finally over. Wu stood with him in the command center. So we won. Was it worth it? Looked at the star map showing the new galactic order. 2 million people died before we started fighting. How many would have died if we had done nothing? If we had kept being diplomatic while the Council ignored us? I think we saved more lives than we took. I have to believe that. And now we build something better. We make sure no species ever has to make the choice we made. We create a galaxy where diplomacy actually works because everyone operates in good faith. He smiled slightly. It is a nice dream anyway. Wu nodded. Dreams are how change starts. A year ago, everyone said the Council was eternal. Now look at us. On Nu, the sun set over the memorial. Dr. Jin stood among the names carved in stone. She thought about the people who died here, the children who would never grow up, the families destroyed, the lives cut short because the galaxy decided they did not matter. It will never happen again, she whispered to the memorial. We made sure of that. The Council is gone. The old order is dead. Your deaths meant something. They changed everything. The names on the stone did not answer. But somehow, standing there in the fading light, Jin felt peace for the first time since that terrible day. Humanity had forsaken diplomacy. They had become what the galaxy feared most. But they had also created something new, something better. A galaxy where species could live without bowing to ancient tyrants, where treaties meant protection, not just words on paper, where justice was possible even for the weak. The price had been high. The cost in lives and suffering was immense. But as Jin looked at the rebuilt colony around her, thriving and alive, she knew they had made the right choice. Sometimes the only way to build something new was to destroy what came before. Sometimes the only language predators understood was violence. The Galactic Council learned that lesson too late. Humanity taught it well.